Hello, my name is Leah. Today we have a very exciting video because it's another recent reads update, and it's been slightly less time than the last time I did one of these. I've literally only had one update for 2021 so far because I did so terrible at reading in the first part of the year. I think the last video literally covered like 6 months of time, so there's that, but I've been doing better. I've been a little bit more intentional since I made that last video because I realized how poorly I was doing, and also I'm falling very behind on my Goodreads goal. It's bad. I think I have 7 books to share with you today. So the last book that I talked about on my last recent reads video was the 6th Harry Potter book, Half-Blood Prince, because I was doing kind of a read through of the whole series. It's been a very long time since I've picked those books up. I used to literally read them like every single year, but it had been a hot second, so I decided to grab some comfort reads because the end of last year was a bit traumatic. Anyways, the first book I have to talk about today is Deathly Hallows. I read this book in May and I absolutely flew through it. This is definitely one of my favorites in the series. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I think the last 2 books jointly are my favorites. So it didn't take me long at all to get through it. I had a good time as always. You know, it was just a comfort read kind of time, and I actually, with this book, started a new habit that I'm trying to cultivate, which is reading first thing in the morning. I think starting off my day reading has really helped me be a little bit more intentional about that, and it also kind of puts me in the right creative mindset before I start my writing for the day as well. It's like I'm refilling the well just a little bit before I jump into making words myself. Anyways, I don't really have much to say about this because, you know, it's been around. We all know. The next book that I picked up after that was The Ivies by Alexa Donne. Now, I go into a little bit more detail about this and the next 2 books on my list as well in my Reading Author Tuber Books vlog. So if you want to go watch me read through this book, plus Can't Catch My Breath by Sarah Sutton and The Anti-Relationship Year by Wismer, go check that video out. I'll link it down below. I absolutely loved The Ivies. I had such a fun time reading it. I usually don't pick up thrillers, and so I was kind of not hesitant going into this because I had good expectations, but you know, it's just not my normal thing to go to. But boy, did I devour this one. It hooked me literally from the beginning, and I think I finished it in like 2 days, which I haven't done in a very long time, like binged a book so quickly. It isn't like huge, so it wasn't too hard to do that, but I did end up staying up very late to finish it. The Ivies is a thriller set at an elite boarding school where there's kind of this competition to see who can get into the Ivy Leagues. There's kind of this thing about how they only accept a certain amount of people from each school each year. So there's really only a few places and everyone is competing for the same like few schools. But the day that Harvard announces their early decisions, one of those people is murdered, and it becomes a question of who did it and why. This was definitely a twisty one. There were some twists that I called and some that I absolutely did not see coming, but everything was set up so well. It had kind of like that rapid fire succession of reveals at the end that just made it so exciting. I think the excitement of all of the reveals actually kind of made the truth of who the killer was a little bit anticlimactic for me, because the motive, I can't really say anything without spoiling it obviously, but it was hard to believe, but not in a way that ruins the book because the story knows that it's a hard to believe motive. If that makes any sense at all, it absolutely doesn't. I'm sorry. This was a great book. I had a great time reading it. You should definitely check it out if you are interested. The next book I'm going to talk about is Can't Catch My Breath by Sarah Sutton. I don't have a physical copy of this book because I bought it on my Kindle. Can't Catch My Breath is part of a series of standalones that Sarah Sutton has written within this kind of town school area. It's young adult romance, and while I do love a good romance, I feel like I haven't picked up any romance in a very long time. So it was very refreshing to kind of, you know, broaden my horizons, and I definitely need to make an effort to do that more often. I think that my list over here is definitely an example of me doing that the past few months. Anyways, Can't Catch My Breath is about a girl who recently lost her dad in a car accident, and she is paired with the guy whose father was the other person in the accident for a school project. So there's automatically just some weirdness there, and working with him kind of brings up a lot of that grief that she's kind of trying to suppress. I really loved this story, and again, I went in with good expectations, but I feel like the book actually exceeded those by a lot. It was such a fun, heartwarming, bubbly read while also making me very sad and emotional, and it was really interesting how those two things kind of collided. It was also fun reading this in the middle of summer because this book is set in January with lots of snow, and it's made me very excited for winter. This is the first book of Sarah's that I've read, and I'm so glad that I picked it up because I just absolutely loved her writing, and I'm so excited to jump into her other books. I know she's actually going to be starting a new series soon. We don't know much about it, but I'm excited for what is to come. The next book I have to talk about, I also don't have a copy, and that is The Anti-Relationship Year by Katie Wismer. Y'all, when I say this book gave me so many feelings. The Anti-Relationship Year is the second book in a duology, but both of the books are also standalones. I haven't read the first one, but I thought that this second one was a little bit more my speed. The first is a young adult romance, but the second one is a new adult romance, and it sounded exactly like the kind of stuff that I like, and oh boy, was I correct. Basically, this book is about our main character, Jo, who is in college, and it kind of jumps between her freshman year and her senior year. Her freshman year absolutely does not go as she planned it to, and by her senior year, she's gone through a lot. This is probably one of the best dual timeline books that I've ever read because the way that Katie just weaves the two storylines together, it works so well. I feel like it would be easy for a book like this to feel like by the end, senior year Jo is where we are, and then we're kind of okay, forget the freshman year, we know what happened, but everything feels like it's supposed to be there in that order, even though it's two completely separate times. The chapters that we were getting from freshman year Jo didn't feel like they were pulling us backward into the past. They really felt like they were propelling senior year Jo onward, even though they were the past. It was really great. I've read one of Katie's poetry collections before, but poetry isn't really my thing, so I didn't really connect with it very deeply, but I absolutely loved this book. I loved her writing style, and so I'm very excited to continue reading her upcoming work. The next book that I read was The Reason for God by Timothy Keller. This is a book my dad gave me for my birthday 4 years ago, and I just never picked it up until now. But basically, this is divided into two main parts. The first part kind of discusses criticisms that people have about Christianity or reasons that people have to not believe the Bible. And it sort of goes topic by topic to sort of refute those reasons for disbelief and show how believing in the Bible and believing in God isn't a logical leap or anything like that. It's actually a very reasonable conclusion grounded in philosophy, history, science, everything, basically. And then the second part talks about reasons to believe in God. So it's kind of the inverse of that. It's not taking a misbelief, it's listing reasons why this makes sense. I really enjoyed this book. I thought that it gave a really good overview of all of those things, the reasons why not, and the reasons why. I am a Christian, and I think that no matter what you believe, it's really important to kind of put your own worldview and your own beliefs under a microscope and really understand why you believe the things you do. Not in a way to justify them, but to examine, is this the truth? Am I on the right path? Does something else make more sense? Believing in God or believing in the Bible isn't something that's blind faith, and it absolutely shouldn't be. It's actually a biblical principle to examine your own beliefs and be ready to give a reason for it as well. A few examples of the things that he discusses is the question of how could a good God allow suffering? Because that's a relevant and reasonable question to ask in the world that we live in. It talks about how the church is responsible for so much injustice that has happened in the world and kind of addressing that problem. It talks about what science has to say about Christianity and faith. Has it disproved Christianity? What history has to say about it? What biblical interpretation is? Studying the text for what they are, what parts of the Bible are historical accounts, which parts are poetic and symbolic, all that good stuff. I always love a good book or sermon or whatever that takes a very rational and analytical approach to examining faith, and so this was definitely that. If you're a Christian or if you're just interested in getting that perspective, I definitely recommend this book. I think that Timothy Keller does a really good job of representing both the Christian and the secular viewpoints pretty fairly, so definitely check it out if you are interested. The next book I have to talk talk about is another nonfiction one, and that is Story Genius by Lisa Cron. This is another one that I have a vlog for, so if you are interested in that, I will leave it linked down below. So I won't go into too much detail on this one, but basically, Story Genius is a writing craft book about planning a story. She specifically doesn't call it pre-writing, she specifically doesn't call it outlining, but it's essentially a walkthrough of the steps to take an idea all the way to writing a compelling and engaging story. I went through the whole book and did all of her little exercises that she recommends, which again is in that vlog. I really enjoyed testing out this method. I had such a great time, and I'm definitely going to be returning to this whenever I have a new idea to kind of start fleshing out. And then the last book I have today to talk about is Better Together by Riccio. I read Again But Better, which is her first book when it came out, and I absolutely loved it, so I knew I was absolutely going to be picking this up. Once again, I definitely loved it. I think I liked Again But Better a little bit more than this one, but I still had such a great time reading it. I found both of the main characters very relatable, even though they were very different, and neither of them is quite like me. You know it's good character writing whenever that's the case. Basically, Better Together is about a pair of sisters who were separated very young in their parents' divorce, and they, by happenstance, meet back up at a camp. They decide to pull a little switcheroo, Parent Trap style, and confront the opposite parent. There's some magical realism, which is always a lot of fun, and both have a romance arc throughout as well. So it's kind of a new adult romance, kind of not, because the main core of it is about the sister relationship, but each of them kind of have their own romantic subplot. I absolutely love this book. I brought it to the beach with me, and thank God I took the dust jacket off because you probably can't see it on camera, and it's actually faded since then. But I had the book open on my lap like this, and it just soaked up my sunscreen, and I actually got a little bit of this blue like rubbed off onto my leg, and then it also like bent the cover, so there's like the gap there now. Anyways, that's why we take the dust jackets off, kids. I love Better Together, I love Christine, and I am very excited to see what she will be writing next. So those are all of the books that I have read since May. I'm picking up the pace a little bit. I'm still behind on my Goodreads goal, but we're getting there. We're slowly but surely catching up. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books. How did you like them? I would love to hear your thoughts. Are any of these on your TBR? But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.